Well, hello, OSU CFAES. It is so nice to be with you on this, your holiday event. Thank you, Dean Kress, and to Misty and Eric for that nice introduction. It's a thrill to be with you here this morning. You know, I looked outside today, and it really looks like the holidays. There's snow coming down, and it's all over the trees, and I thought, wow, this really looks like it's supposed to at this time of year. Which, during this year, anything that's behaving as it's supposed to is kind of a rarity, because this year has been nothing but upheaval and disruption and the unexpected. But I do love this time of year because I love all the decorating. I even love going out and looking for those gifts. Now this year it's mostly in front of the computer screen looking at Amazon. But there's a bit of stress with that because the truth is I'm not a great gift giver. And I just don't have great ideas. Now, my wife, she's wonderful. My wife, Susanna, she's always had a theme with her gifts. And usually there's a backstory. I remember one year she gave me a saxophone. And I said, what is this for? And then she gave me a gift certificate for lessons. And she said, well, I remember the look on your face when you were listening to this Charlie Parker album. And she said, how you just said you'd love to be able to make music like this. I wanted to put that look back on your face. And I was so moved. I mean, I got a little tearful thinking how thoughtful that was. And I thought, wow, kind of hate to give her the Snuggie and the Fry Daddy now. Wow. Because my backstory is, I know you're cold, and what's cozier than a blanket you can wear like a robe and some fried food? I'll get the receipt, right? So this time of year, though, is one that kind of makes us all common. We all know that there are certain expectations and stresses that come with it. But this year, we got a nice little card from the kids down the street. They always like the decorations we put up, so they've decided to give us little bits of their artwork, and they'll knock on the door and leave us their artwork. Well, for Christmas, they gave us this. I want you to see what they gave us. Okay? It says, thank you to our essential workers. And my wife is retired from teaching, so she said, well, it must be for you, and they obviously have no idea what it is you do for a living. Well, you folks are actually essential, because I was looking at your mission statement, and it says, together we sustain life. Well, there's nothing more essential than that. And all of you, no matter whether you're faculty or you're in research or you're in an extension office working with the public or you're running a 4-H program or IT or groundskeepers or whatever it is that you do, you're part of that very important and essential mission to sustain life. The thing that I like about it is you often say it's maybe not part of your official mission, together we sustain life. And I think that's the part that it's been difficult this year because you're not together. Right now, physically, you're in remote places, you're in endless Zoom meetings, and it takes a little bit of a toll and causes us some stress, right? But as big as that mission is, I think it's incomplete. As much as it encompasses, I think it could use an addition. And here's what I'd like you to add to it. And if you don't do it officially as the College of Food, Agriculture, and Environmental Sciences, you can do it individually where it works best anyway. Together, we sustain life, and we do it with joy. Now, how many would really agree that that is a pretty good goal? That if you bring joy to what you do, you probably, like me, believe that it makes you better at what you do. All the research seems to say that. When I came out of education, I was a teacher. And if someone would ever ask me, what really is the secret to being an effective educator, I'd say it really comes down to two things. You have to love and have a passion for your subject, and you have to really care about your learners, about your students. If we care about what it is that we do, and we do it with a passion, and we care about the people we do it for, then you know what? We're probably going to be better at that. And if we do it with some good humor sprinkled in, we are going to be able to be resilient in the face of even disruptions like we've seen this year. And we get very harsh in our judgment of people in traffic jams. And what about that guy who's coming up on the right of you who didn't get over when they said this lane was closing, and he's trying to cut in, and is he going to get in front of you? Oh, he's got another thing coming, right? Does this sound familiar? How many have done that? You've tried to protect your territory, right? You've tried to enforce some justice in a traffic jam. We've all done it. I've done it. We know exactly how that feels, and people are infuriating because their behaviors don't match up with what we think is the way it should be done. So I'm with my dad. I'm 15 years old, and we see all the brake lights ahead of us. And Dad turned to me and he said, "I'm going to show you how to solve a traffic jam." And I thought he was joking. I was waiting for a punchline. I thought, come on, you're kidding. But he wasn't kidding. He was sure he had the answer to solving this traffic jam that went on as far as you could see in front of us and was backing up behind us. And I said, "Dad, you're kidding." He said, "Two things you have to do." I love it when we can simplify a big problem into a simple solution that's elegant. He said, "Stay off the brake and make room." That's all you got to do. So I want to try something right now, all right? I want you to think of the changes that you've had to go through in the last, not just the last few months of 2020, but before then. You had a daily routine. And let's give that a very simple physical action. So here in front of your computer, I want you to just use the desk in front of you or your knees and just make that say, okay, this was my daily routine, right? This is what I did. Whether I was a researcher or whether I was in administration or I was a groundskeeper, but this is what I did, right? And so if I just do this, I'm saying, you know what? It was certainly more complicated than this, but as a representation of having to do a daily routine, not bad. Okay? And it seems pretty boring. But things didn't stay the same, did they? No. Even before the pandemic hit, there were certainly changes. There were changes in restrictions. There were changes in technologies. There were changes in the needs of the public and the communities that you serve. And so we had to switch it up a little bit. You had to do something a little bit different. So everybody, this is what we're doing now. How you doing? All right? You getting that? Okay, good. And as long as things stayed like that, it took a little while to adjust to that, but you finally got it. But along comes 2020, and all of a sudden there's a pandemic, and all of a sudden we got to move all of our programs online, and you got to balance what's going on at home with what's going on professionally, and this is what we're doing now. Now, how many of you just had a screw up just then, right? How many just had an eye injury just then? You see somebody, oh, like that? That's silly. But it actually is one of the reasons why trying to cope with change and stress is really difficult and damaging to our level of joy. My mom was a child of the Great Depression. And so she lived in Springfield, Ohio, large family. They had very little in a rented house, furnished rented house, and with lots of brothers and sisters. And during that time, here she was very young, and she came down with rheumatic fever. But when it got warm enough, the doctor told my grandmother, he said, take her out in the sunshine for her joints and to help her get some sun. That's really going to help her, to warm her up. Take her out on the chaise lounge. And so every sunny day in the summer, my grandmother would carry her, because she didn't weigh very much at that time, and she'd lay her in the chaise lounge in the sun in the backyard. And one day, Mrs. Gaffney came out, but this time her hair wasn't wild. It was combed and pinned back. And she had something in her hand, but it wasn't a broom, and she came and she opened the gate between their 2 yards. And she came up to my mom and handed her a bowl. And in that bowl were fresh-cut, sliced strawberries, sprinkled with sugar, and covered with heavy cream. My mom said that was the best thing I ever ate in my life. She never tasted anything in her life that ever tasted better to her. In fact, every time we had anything with strawberries, we'd have, hey, here's strawberry shortcake, Mom. And she'd say, you know, when I was a kid, Mrs. Gaffney, oh, here we go. We'd hear the story again and again and again, probably easily 100 times. I heard that story, and she told it as if we'd never heard it before, every time. And I thought I'd had my fill of that story, but when Mom passed away in 2012, I thought, boy, I'd like to hear her tell it again. But then I thought about that bowl and that little gift. And here's the amazing thing. I just want you to think about that bowl of strawberries lasted for 79 years. It outlived Mrs. Gaffney.
It outlived that little girl. And if somebody tells the story after I'm gone, it may outlive me. That's the immortality of a single kind act that says, I recognize you. You're included in my thoughts. I care about you. I hear you. What is your bowl of strawberries? And as you go through your meeting today and all the goals of trying to identify common ground, start at common human need. Find out what your bowl of strawberries is. And if it's nothing more than we can share a laugh and a smile, that's a great place to start. Because you can start where you are. You can use what you have. And you can do what you can.